Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Preparing for Retirement. My name's Martha, and today I'm going to talk about our trip to Frascati, which is a absolutely beautiful little town outside of Rome, and it's known as Little Rome. So when it became apparent that it was going to be very difficult to get into all the buildings in the Vatican with the current events, I looked around and I found this tour on getyourguide.com, and I will have the link below to the tour. It cost us $170 and it was just an absolutely fantastic experience. I would highly recommend it. You definitely want to dedicate an entire day to the tour, as there's so much to see. Frascati actually has a very long history with the Vatican. It's the home of a papal summer palace, which resulted in one of the first railroads in Rome, coming from Rome to Frascati. And of course, when there's a papal palace, you will have the various cardinals who are sons of wealthy families in Rome building mansions around the Pope so as to be close. So Frascati really has some of the most beautiful buildings, amazing architecture, and it was a real joy to walk around the town. So let's start at the beginning. First, we had to catch a train to Frascati from Rome. So we left for Termini Station and took the train to Frascati. It took a couple of hours, and the countryside was just so beautiful that we thoroughly enjoyed the train ride, and it was not expensive at all. Once we arrived at Frascati, we disembarked and we met our guide right outside the train station. And he took us up into the city center and started telling us all about the history of Frascati, how the Pope built the palace and the cardinals followed. He told us about the bombing during the war, because Frascati actually housed a German headquarters there, and how many of the buildings were lost. He also described his life there and how life in general in Frascati is an old way of living. It's a throwback, meaning that you have your different smiths. You have a butcher, you have a bread maker, you have a wine maker, you have a different store for every want that you could have. Instead of going to one store, you would just go and make multiple stops along your day to do your shopping. And you would have these stores that have been in families for generation upon generation. And what a wonderful way that was to live. So we really enjoyed our time walking around the central square and walking past these shops and knowing the history. We did get to see the church also, which supposedly has the heart of Bonnie Prince Charlie, who fell in love with Frascati. And it was his wish that upon his death that his heart be buried there. His brother was a bishop at the time. So we continued our walk through Frascati for a time, and we did learn about how they have a particular way of serving pork loin, and it's available all throughout. You can see here specialty of Frascati, and apparently it is something to experience. It was a little early in the morning for us to do this that day, but I do intend to try that at some point. Then we went on to El Hosteria, as you can see here, which is actually one of the buildings that escaped the German bombing. And they seated us outside and proceeded to serve us some of the area wine, the Frascati wine, along with some snacks. And we learned about how the Frascati grape is a very interesting grape. It's very distinctive due to the type of soil that you have. It's a very high mineral soil, and so Lou actually does not care for white wine very much. and he really liked this Frascati wine, so it was wonderful. After our wine sampling, it was time to walk back to the van so that we could actually go out to the vineyard. And on the way to the vans, we passed the old building that had the prison, and we actually saw where in the window there was a little hole, a little place where you could pass wine through to the prisoners, because apparently it was considered cruel and unusual punishment to withhold wine from prisoners. So from there, we continued to walk through the town on our way to meet up with the vans and to be able to head out to the vineyard. All along the way, we did see little spots for gathering, and it was such a really neat community feel. So really enjoyed that town. Do want to go back. So we got into the van and we started our drive, and it was probably about 15 to 20 minutes out to the vineyard. And our guide did share with us that the vineyard owners, the Minardi's, were actually good friends of his grandparents. He grew up with his grandparents in the house right next door. And so it was a real treat to hear the background, not only of our guide and the families in the area, but also how the vineyard was in this family for, I believe it was 8 or 9 generations, making wine. So when we arrived, we did take a moment to look around. The sights were just incredible views, and we were surrounded by other vineyards and horse properties, and it was just stunning. So then we moved to the side of the vineyard, and they had a nice little gathering area that we were able to sit down and actually try the wine that they produced on that land, along with some cheeses, and oh, it was so good. It was so delicious. At that point, we were joined by the owner of the vineyard, and he took us on a tour through the vineyard, told us more about the history, and described the process of growing and harvesting the grapes. He had been doing it since he was a young child, and it was really a fantastic chance to hear about the whole process. He brought us into the building where they are actually manufacturing the wine. He talked about himself as a young child actually processing wine the old-fashioned way, and there were pictures of him on the wall as a child making the wine with his family. It was so interesting, and it was just wonderful to see the relationship that our guide had with this older gentleman. You could tell that he really loved the process of the wine. He really loved what he did every day, day in, day out, and how proud he was of what his family had built over generations. So after we talked about the actual process of making the wine back then and today, he took us down into a limestone cellar, which was just absolutely amazing. And it was created naturally. And when they built the house, they found this pocket that acts as a natural refrigerator. And that was actually where they would age the wine prior to bringing it to the market. So after we left the limestone room, they brought us back to the table in the original winemaking room and served us this incredible farmhouse lunch. And it was so incredibly delicious. We just enjoyed every bit of it, and each course was accompanied by wine, of course. And so after that, we pretty much wrapped it up and headed back into town and got back on the train and headed back into Rome. But, all in all, it was just an incredibly amazing day. And we do plan on returning to Frascati. I highly recommend this tour. If you get a chance to visit Rome and you want to book it, I highly recommend it. It was well worth the money. So if you enjoy this sort of content, please like and subscribe. And I thank you so much for watching my video. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. God bless. Bye.